Yo guys, welcome back to another video. It has been some time. Last week I was kind of busy with my exams and stuff, and I'm finally free. It's Monday, weekly reset. So let's talk about some characters while I finish my weekly stuff. So I guess we are getting closer towards the end of the current banner, that is the Blade banner. That means we are also getting closer towards the Kafka banner. And if you go a little further, there are some insane characters coming to the game in the 1.3 patch. So with all these characters coming, it's really hard to choose, right? Specifically for a newer player who may have just started with this new patch. So in this video, we're going to be discussing who should you prioritize between Blade, Kafka or Imbibitor Lunae. Now I am including these three characters because these are going to be your premier choices to build your team. Especially if you miss Sealer in the first banner. I am also not including Fu Xuan as she's a preservation character, and I wouldn't recommend someone who just started the game to go for a premier support before securing a main damage dealer. So with that out of the way, let's get into this video. So we'll start with a brief introduction to their individual kits. Let's start with Blade. Now Blade is a wind destruction character with unique HP mechanics. All his abilities, his basic attack and skill and his ultimate cost HP. That means he consumes his own HP whenever he attacks. All his attack scales with HP, so you won't have to worry about getting one-shotted, as his max HP will be much higher than any other damage dealer. Most of his damage is in his enhanced basic attack, which you enhance by using his skill every 3 turns. This also makes him a very skill point efficient character. His ultimate is a single target nuke with some splash damage to adjacent enemies. He also has a follow-up attack mechanic, which triggers after every 5 times he loses HP, which can be done by both himself reducing his own HP by using any ability or by getting hit. Now this follow-up attack also heals him, which will make it so that his HP will continuously go up and down in a battle. So overall, he's a great damage dealer with one of the highest numbers, and it's also very easy to play and build. Great character overall. Now as for Kafka, she's a lightning nihility character, and as the name says, she applies debuff. But the unique thing about her is that she can also detonate those debuffs in her own turn. Usually debuffs like wind shear or in Kafka's case shock, these deal damage when the enemy takes their turn. But Kafka can detonate these debuffs by using her skill, which makes it so that the enemies takes 2 instances of damage. One from Kafka detonating those debuffs and one from the debuffs dealing damage themselves in the enemy's turn. Apart from her crazy skill, her ultimate is an AoE attack which deals lightning damage to all enemies and applying shock to the enemies while detonating that very shock for one time. Apart from this, her basic attack does nothing special apart from dealing lightning damage. Now similar to Blades, Kafka also has a follow-up attack mechanic. Whenever any of her teammates basic attacks the enemy, Kafka launches a follow-up attack dealing damage and applying shock to the enemy. This can be done only once a turn. Overall, she's not a main damage dealer like Blade. She's someone I would call an enabler. She wants her teammates to apply different types of debuffs to the enemy, and she will detonate those debuffs and deal damage. This type of playstyle does not make her a support, but more like a driver to a DOT focused team. Now lastly, let's look at Imbibitor Lunae. He's going to be an imaginary destruction character with crazy damage potential. He has 4 types of basic attack. First is a normal single target attack, but you can enhance it 3 times by using his skill. And at max enhancement, his basic attack hits 3 targets and hits multiple times, dealing crazy damage. Now for every enhancement of his basic attack, he will consume 1 skill point. So a total of 3 skill points is needed for a max enhanced basic attack. Well, when you hear this, you would think that he will consume a lot of skill points, right? But his ultimate solves his skill point needs. His ultimate is a big nuke like Blade, which targets 3 enemies and gives him 3 charges. Now these charges can be used in place of skill points. Of course, this can only be used by Lunae himself, but still, it's a unique but great mechanic. Usually destruction character does not take that much skill points like all the hunt characters, so it's a good thing that Lunae is also a great skill point efficient character. Now other than his abilities, his passive gives him a stacking crit damage buff, which greatly helps with his damage. So overall, Lunae seems to be a heavy damage focused character. All his skills and passives are damage focused. So with all that in mind, who should you pick? All 3 characters are great at what they do, so it's hard to make a choice, right? Especially for an FTP such as myself. So let's discuss it, right? First, I'll divide the discussion into 2 parts. Which of these 3 is more free to play friendly or easier to build? Hence, which character you want to prioritize if you can get only one. So let's start with which of these are more FTP friendly and easier to build. Let's start with Kafka. Now if you played other turn-based gacha games, you would know that the most effective teams to complete PvE challenges are either a fast team where you can take multiple turns to take down the enemy before the enemy take you down, or a DOT team where you control the enemy by stacking various debuffs and dealing huge damage at the enemy's turns. So with this in mind, I would say that Kafka has insane potential, but still reaching those insane highs do require high level gearing. So what kind of relics would you use on her? She will most likely need the lightning set, as all her ability scales very high with lightning damage. As for her teams, since Kafka works as an enabler, you need other Nihility characters to work with her. Characters like Sampo or the new upcoming Luca. I don't think her personal damage is going to be that high, other than maybe her ultimate. So I would say you have to be pretty specific with Kafka's teams. Now let's take Blade and Lunae in the same group, as both are destruction characters who focuses on their basic attack and are quite similar in many ways. So what do they need for their builds? What kind of teams they prefer? Since both of them heavily focuses on their basic attack, the Musketeer set is a great option to start with. You can get the pieces from everywhere, and by now you most likely already have a decent set. Of course, they have their own preferred sets like the new HP set for Blade and the imaginary set for Lunae if you want to min-max them any further. As far as teams are concerned, I think both of them need similar kind of teammates. You want a Harmony character for buffs, best being Bronya, a Nihility character for debuffs, best being Silverwolf, a healer, best being Luocha. Now this doesn't mean that you have to have these characters to make your Blade or Lunae work. Both of them can work with multiple different 4-star options like Pella, Natasha, Asta, or even Yukong. So looking at the whole thing, I would say that Blade and Lunae are going to be more free-to-play friendly and easier to build. Both can work with Musketeer set and have tons of options for team comps. Now you could say that you can put Musketeer set on your Kafka as well for attack and speed, but still the set won't provide that much value to Kafka as it would be for someone like Blade or Lunae who heavily focuses on their basic attack. Same goes for team comps. Both Blade and Lunae can work with literally any character, but Kafka needs other Nihility characters to work with her. Granted, you are getting all the Nihility characters you'll ever need for a Kafka team in her banner, but still, having 4 characters does not end it. You have to build all 4 of them. Since Kafka will work with her entire team's damage rather than her personal damage, you have to have decent gear on all of them to get better value. That's why I'd say focusing on a single character is much more easier than focusing on 4 different characters. Now you can say that Nihility characters do not need that much stats, they only need speed, effect hit rate and attack, but you want those 3 stats for the whole team. On the other hand, Blade and Lunae only needs good pieces for themselves, and all the others can just work with leftovers. That's why I'd say Blade and Lunae are going to be more free-to-play friendly and easier to build than Kafka. Now as for who are more easier to build and have to be friendly between Blade and Lunae, I would say Lunae is more free-to-play friendly. Now hear me out first, right? They both are very similar in their value, but the difference comes in their Lightcone choices. Blade is an HP scaling character, so destruction Lightcones with attack boost won't work for him. The only Lightcone you can put on him apart from his signature are going to be Clara's Lightcone because it provides damage boost, and a secret vow, Arlen's Lightcone, which also provides damage boost. And truth to be told, I still haven't pulled that Lightcone yet. You can also use a 3-star Lightcone which provides crit rate. I don't know the name of the Lightcone, but it's a decent choice. But now when it comes to Lunae, since he scales with attack, you can literally use whatever Lightcone on him, even the Herda store one. The same can be said with his relic sets. Obviously their best in slots are going to be good for them, but when you're just starting to get good relics, the Musketeer set is your best bet, and that set will work slightly a bit better for Lunae than Blade, since he can utilize the 2-piece effect as well. Now this HP scaling issue applies to the team comps as well. You cannot use buffers like Tingyun who provide attack buff with Blade, but Lunae can use whatever you provide him with. One of the best pairs with Lunae might be Yukong, who is a free character that you are given from the Forgotten Halls. So after seeing all this, I'd say Lunae is slightly more FTB friendly than Blade, and then Kafka as a more resource heavy option. Now after coming through all this, who would you prioritize? Both Blade and Lunae are great options, Kafka being a bit heavier on the resources but still a great choice. I'd say the question you need to ask yourself is, when you started playing? Have you been playing since the launch? Or are you just starting in this patch? Do you already have a premier damage dealer in your roster like Seela or Jinyuan? Or you're looking to pick your first? Now in case you are just starting, I'd say go for either Blade or Lunae. Prioritize a single all-in-one damage dealer whom you can put all your resources into and make him the best you can. You don't have to spread your resources between a lot of characters like with Kafka teams. Just focus on that one guy and you'll be fine. Now if you already have a premier damage dealer, then ask yourself this: what kind of playstyle do you want to play? Do you like DOT playstyles? You can make your decision based on that. Since you already have a main DPS, you can branch into other characters like Kafka. But if you still want my opinion, I would say pick between Blade and Lunae. You can choose whoever you like. For me, that's going to be Lunae. Now here I'm not saying that Kafka is a bad character to pull. Well, if you play Genshin Impact, I always compare Kafka to a character like Tartaglia. He is also an enabler, and his team is one of the best team of all time for clearing endgame content. But as I said, endgame, which means having a lot of good pieces and resources to put on the whole team. Everyone needs to be well geared. That's why I'd never recommend anyone who is just starting the game to pull for Tartaglia. Hell, I myself got him in his second rerun. Similarly for Kafka, I changed the question from is Kafka a good pull to is it a good time to pull for Kafka? And my answer will be no. I'd say Kafka teams will eventually become one of the strongest teams in the entire game. But for now, I say you can look for more straightforward damage dealers like Blade or Lunae, who can show you immediate results rather than aiming for future potential. So there you have it. These are my thoughts on these 3 characters, and also a way for myself to cope, since I myself also can choose only one and have to skip the rest. So with that, thank you very much for listening to me rambling. Hell, it's freaking 3 o'clock in the morning. How long have I been recording this? Well, anyway, if you found this video helpful, drop a like and subscribe for more Starlight content from yours truly. And tell me about your choices between these 3 characters, or are you going for all of them in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next video.